Okay, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
This week we have a new movie that we're going to be reviewing
We do.
that just came out this weekend.
Good.
That's what a new movie is,
It
I
is.
suppose. So makes the most sense. But before we jump into the new movie, just briefly, I want to touch on a couple of things that happened this week. One was last Sunday, you went and saw one of your checklist movies to
did.
see in the theater, which
did.
was.
I went to see The Godfather.
And how was that experience, Andy?
It was incredible. It's like when you speak to a fellow movie lover, you understand this. Where I have seen I've been watching The Godfather since I was probably 13 years old. I mean, it's a 3-hour movie. I'm sure I've seen it 30 times. But there's just something about watching it up on the big screen. And I'm watching it and I'm just in awe of how good it is. It looks great on the screen. It sounds great on the screen. And you just go, like, you find yourself turning into that old guy and you're like, man, they just don't make them like this anymore. Now, there's a lot of good movies, but that is, we talk about this on here where elite, just that elite level movie. And this may be the most elite level movie of them all. It was a wonderful experience. I was happy the entire time. The fastest 2 hours and 55 minutes of my life. That's the length that the movie is, 2 hours and 55 minutes long. I've seen it. I've been watching it for years. I was never for 1 second bored or disinterested in what was going on. It was incredible.
Okay, and held up okay on the big screen.
Oh, if you want to nitpick, you can. You notice a few little things, which you can notice this on an old crusty VHS. When James Caan is beating up the brother-in-law, he throws a punch that misses by this far. But you know what? I don't care. It doesn't hurt the movie one bit. It was 1972, probably 1971 when they were making that movie.
Yeah.
I could care less. There was a couple times I noticed when he was beating up the brother-in-law, I noticed it for the first time up on the big screen that it's very clearly not the brother-in-law in some scenes. It's obviously a stunt man who looks much different than the actual character. And then at the end, when one of the rival gangsters gets shot, he is tumbling down some stairs. And again, I noticed very clearly that it was a stuntman. But that stuff doesn't bother me at all. I don't care. There wasn't CGI back then, obviously, to correct it. I don't care. I don't need every minute detail of the movie. I don't care to see the occasional crack like that. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. And what was the theater capacity like? Were there many people?
There were
with you.
There were. I would say this is a Sunday night, 7:00, stormy, crummy night, and I would say there was, I'm going to guess 25 people in that theater, young to old.
Nice.
And by young, I mean maybe mid-20s or so.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great crowd, and it was you go to see something like that. Pretty safe to assume you probably know the movie, know what the movie is, or at least know about the kind of the aura around the movie. And it just seemed like everyone showed up very respectful of the movie and they were just locked in. I don't think one person got up. I didn't hear any chattering. I certainly didn't see any cell phones. It was the ideal crowd to watch The Godfather.
Well, that's awesome.
It was an incredible, I don't have a negative thing to say. It was an incredible experience.
That's cool. There's a part of me that regrets that I didn't go to see it. It was just, I was not quite feeling up for a 3-hour long epic.
It's a commitment.
That Sunday night.
It's a commitment, and that's a heavy movie. It's a weighty movie. It's not a, not a feel good movie necessarily. So I get it.
Yeah. The other thing we were laughing about before we started filming, that another movie they put back in theaters was Gone with the Wind, and I just texted you, a screenshot of the fact that it was playing. And told you I was amazed that I clicked the seats available because I was just curious and saw that 7 seats were taken.
Tell everyone how long that thing, 4 hours,
4 hours
and 2 minutes. No, thank you. I love movies. I respect the history of movies. I would not sit and watch 4 hours and 2 minutes of Gone with the Wind for anything.
Yeah, I mean the fact that people were not going to the theaters because the latest Martin Scorsese movie was 3.5. Imagine tacking on another half an hour to that and going, it's not even a modern movie. It's Gone with the Wind.
1939, I believe, is when that movie came out.
Yeah. So we talk about it all the time. Like we're movie nerds by almost anybody's standards, but we're not afraid to be like, hey, you know what? Gone with the Wind. I have no interest. I have not seen it.
No.
I don't care. You tried watching it, and
I did. I try not to just, well, I'm a movie guy, so I have to like this movie. I just so happen to love The Godfather. You know, it's not because I feel like I'm supposed to. You know, when we talked about it, Gone with the Wind, Citizen Kane, not on my list. You know, whatever. You know, respect it if you want to. It's boring. It just is.
yeah.
I'll say one last thing about The Godfather. The ultimate, I was thinking about this when I watched it, the ultimate merger of prestige and just entertainment. Just a great mixture of the two things where you know you're watching something that is high level, but not so high level that you're, you know, kind of going, how much longer is this? I mean, so entertaining, so prestige, and the way they're just mixed together is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Shout out to Flashback Cinema.
Yeah.
Because now you and I saw Terminator 2 together.
Mhm.
I've seen The Godfather, and it's possible this week I might see The Dark Knight.
Okay.
So Flashback Cinema is just dominating this year.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job.
Yeah. So, you know, like we tell people, check your local theater listing,
Yeah.
see what's coming out, what
You
you might
never
get
know.
a chance to see.
You never know what's going to be on there.
Yeah. All right. So that's all preamble. We'll get to the main course here, which is that we went and saw the latest movie from writer-director Alex Garland, Civil War.
Yes.
And we both talked about this in our movies we're looking forward to for 2024. We both basically said this is a case of I trust the creative force behind the movie that it's going to be an interesting movie.
Yep.
Like we both were like, we know who Alex Garland are. He's had good movies in the past, or at least interesting movies. There's just something that about him that says we'll go see when we hear that he's got a new movie. And I said the thing, and I was carrying this into the movie, and it's like I'm really glad I know who Alex Garland is, because if this was Civil War, I said by Roland Emmerich, like, you know how different it is. You know how different it is. And I think that probably a lot of people went to the theater expecting a movie like that sort, like a Roland Emmerich, big, epic, broad scope, destructive, you know, type movie. And I was like, I know with Alex Garland, that's not what we're going to get.
Right.
He's not that kind of filmmaker. That's not the kind of stories he likes to tell, I don't think. Is like, unless I'm just going to be really shocked. And I was kind of fascinated because I think the previews kind of tried to sell that. I think knowing people were going to want big blockbuster action.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, am I going to be surprised that the previews are accurate? Or
did the previews only show what action there is?
Right. Because I know he's much more fascinated with the little dynamics within a story. Like, he likes small stories, even if they're in a big setting. And that's what this one was.
Yes.
Ultimately, like, it was even simpler than I could have anticipated as far as what he actually goes into. Now, we talk all the time about, we love when movies don't over-explain things, when it lets you kind of figure it out by just existing in the world. And this might be the most, like, extreme example of that that I've ever seen in a movie, because
you don't even know why there's a civil war.
It explains almost nothing. It just dumps you in. Like, it's not like the Civil War begins. There's not even like one of those. I expected like a news footage exposition to explain what's going on.
It all started in 2020. Yeah.
None of that.
No.
And it just like kind of throws you in. But it's also like not overly actiony and intense either. Like you're not even really sure where you, like, it's not, I don't know. It's kind of disorienting at first. Trying to get your bearings of where you are.
Then you settle in.
Yeah. And this is going to be, like, I'll just go ahead and say this from the beginning, like, spoiler alerts, because this is going to be an impossible movie to talk about without getting into spoilers. So as we talk about what kind of movie this is, we're going to have to get into spoilers. And I guess I'll go ahead and say right from the start that I really enjoyed this movie.
Okay.
I don't know if I am going to say it's a great movie. It's not a movie I would tell just any of my friends to go see, because I know what most people want in a movie, and it's not this. But I was with this movie all the way through.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm going to lean in for dramatic effect. My favorite movie of the year, by far.
Whoa. Okay. All right.
Lean back out.
Okay. That is exciting.
Move over Dune 2. Because this overtook it for me.
I was so curious what you were going to say, because I was like, it could go either way.
I think that applies to anyone that goes to see this movie. It's like, you might walk out and go, what was that?
So as soon as the movie ended, as soon as it went to credits, there was a group of boys sitting behind me that looked like, I don't know, high school juniors or seniors, maybe college age or
Mhm.
something like that. And one of them just murmurs as soon as it's over, "That was the stupidest movie ever." And I was like,
Ah,
I am not shocked young
I'm
guys
not
would think that,
surprised.
because they probably, they're
They were
the,
probably thinking, like I said, Roland Emmerich's Civil War. That's a
yeah.
great way to put it.
and and that's not what they're gonna. And I was like, I knew that's not what you're gonna. And I'm like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the smallness of it.
Yep.
So just briefly, you probably can tell from the previews, it's the main characters are press. There's Kirsten Dunst plays a photographer. She's the main character.
Yep.
Her friend, who I'm not even really sure what his role is. He talks about like getting a quote or an interview, or like I'm not sure what he does in
He's
the press.
just
He's just part of
Like
the
her
press.
right hand man, kind
Yeah.
of. I don't know. I thought he was really good.
Yeah,
but I know we'll get into all
So there's
this.
a young girl who is wanting to be a photographer, who knows Kirsten Dunst's work and
Mhm.
admires her, and she ends up tagging along. And then in their caravan and their adventures, there's a fourth character who's a guy that works for a rival press company, but's playing the sort of older, wiser guy. And again, we'll get into each of the actors that play in these and stuff. But the gist of the movie is that we're just following these four characters. So that's first big spoiler surprise, is there's some other big names in the movie who are in the ads, and it turns out they are hardly in the movie.
I know you're talking about Nick Offerman, and of course I was disappointed, because who doesn't want more Nick Offerman?
Yeah.
But the way they did use him, I thought was great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great use of them. It is just, I don't even know if they meant to be as, I mean, I guess they kind of had to. I guess if you're putting the cast in like order of appearance, it's not a surprise you pull up on IMDb and he's the first name
Mhm.
listed. But if you see that and think, oh, Nick Offerman's
A Nick
the star of this
Offerman
movie. No.
I think a few months ago I even told you, I go, I'm so glad someone's finally giving Nick Offerman a chance.
Something to do.
Bad words from me.
Yeah. Jesse Plemons,
Oh,
who everyone kind of knew, like from the previews, he had the preview moment.
the ultimate like 10-minute man.
Yeah.
Because Killers of the Flower Moon, remember we talked about it?
Yeah.
It's like, man, he doesn't show up till like hour 3, but he's awesome. He's so good in this movie.
Yes. And it's one of those things, like, I think famously among people who know movies know that he and Kirsten Dunst are married in real life. And it makes you wonder if
she wasn't like, hey,
Yeah,
I know
like-
who could come in and kill
like,
this.
yeah, I know you're overqualified for this little role in this movie, but like if you just showed up, yeah.
By the way, what are the odds that he was like, okay, but only if I get to wear these weird red glasses for absolutely no reason?
There's a good chance.
Just wondering. I was like, I think my daughter Katie has a pair of glasses like that, and she's 13.
Yeah. So the one thing that I was anxious about going into the movie is a movie called Civil War. I was like, is this going to be an overly political movie in its subtext, even
That
if
was
not overtly?
My number one
I was
worry.
like, I don't know Alex Garland's politics enough. I would imagine he's probably got liberal politics. I don't know. But either way, I just didn't want it to be one of those movies where he was trying to drive home a message, and so it interfered with just making a good story.
Mhm.
And I got to say, like, it's one of those things. I left the theater and I said, I'm sure I could probably watch a YouTube video that's breaking down, like, oh, here's all the messaging that you may not have picked up. But I didn't leave going, I didn't think there was any messaging really, other than, like, wouldn't it be wild if this happened in our country? And sort of the messages that we don't pay attention to, maybe the warning signs that are going on in other countries, but not for any particular leaning.
No.
And so I was really glad that this movie didn't get derailed by message movie making.
I was so happy. I am probably the least political person that people will tell you that.
Hmm.
My wife will tell you that. I just don't care.
Mhm.
Maybe you're not supposed to say that. I don't know. But I don't. I don't care. I don't want political messages beating me over the head during a movie. I was so I felt like this was just completely neutral. And I'm like you, because I'm not a political guy, maybe there's stuff that I just didn't pick up on.
Mhm.
And I'm glad I didn't. But, it was like I was so relieved by that.
Yeah.
I just felt like he just presented a story. Look at it how you want. Pick a side if you want. Say that it leans this way or that way. But here's the story.
Yeah. And I actually did read just one bit of trivia that the reason he chose for the one side of the Civil War to be Texas and California together, which is hilarious. After reading this quote, I did see on Twitter where all these people were arguing, like, actually, that's not a bizarre pairing because there's all these people in Texas from California and blah blah blah. They're actually closer linked than you think. But he said, I chose them because they seem so opposed, and I wanted to like make it not like a clear side. I wanted it to be a blank slate, basically,
Yeah.
that people would go like Texas and California together. What's their point of view? Well, I'm not
You
giving
don't
you
know.
a point of view.
You have no clue.
So I loved that he did that.
Me too.
So let's talk a little bit about Alex Garland, and maybe this is where we should have started, because Alex Garland for years was a screenwriter.
Yes.
His kind of breakout film was 28 Days Later, which was a zombie movie.
Very thought of very highly by people.
Which stars Cillian Murphy,
Yes, it
one
does.
of his breakout roles. And the thing I always, again, going back to Alex Garland just does movies differently than you would think. The thing that always blows my mind about that movie is it's a zombie movie, but by the end, the like climactic conflict is really between humans.
Yes.
Like the humans that are surviving end up being the bad guys that you're like. So he almost always uses whatever context he's doing. He always likes really human conflict within these sci-fi worlds. That he's more interested in.
No,
and so like that one, maybe more than any other one, was making me really curious about what he was going to do inside of this Civil War world.
Civil War world. Is that what you wanted to say?
That's what I wanted to say.
You just didn't.
I'm not crushing it today.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm going to blame it on allergies. I am like super congested in this area. And like, I'm on some medication maybe for that. Could be making me a little crazy.
Could be, couldn't be. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, but then he started writing and directing. He began directing movies with 2015's Ex Machina.
One of your favorites.
One of my favorite movies.
Yes.
To me, it is a perfect movie.
It's great.
And when I say perfect movie, like I always have to explain this to people, it doesn't mean that like it's the greatest movie ever. What I mean is every element that had to come together in a movie worked perfectly and fit seamlessly. Like there's nothing I would change for what story they were trying to tell. I think they
told
did it
flawlessly.
Yes. And I think it is actually just his masterpiece.
Yeah.
And it's
Did you name it as your best of that year?
I did.
Yeah, I thought so.
It's one of his smaller movies. And I think it's one of those movies where like you could tell he was thinking about it a long time. You could tell when he was stepping in to direct, he's like, I don't want to direct unless I've got like the perfect vision laid out.
Yeah.
And it's just a great movie. He followed it up with Annihilation, 2018. A little bigger, a little more ambitious.
A little bigger, yep. I really like Annihilation.
I really do too. And it is so bizarre.
It's very bizarre.
But it is also, it's based on source material outside of Alex Garland. It wasn't an original concept for him. I guess it was a book that he was adapting.
Yeah, I didn't know
that he
anything
liked.
about.
I didn't know anything about the book, but it's interesting when a guy who's a writer himself says, I want to take another material and adapt it. And I don't know. He could have changed a lot of things. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Put his own spin on it.
Really good movie, though.
And then in 2022, he did a movie called Men.
Yeah.
And it was
that one
not
felt like
a successful movie.
It just kind of came and went.
And
it's good.
It's
weird.
Yes. It's one of those ones. Okay, so this is what I'll say. It's not good, but it's made incredibly well.
There you go.
Everything in it is well done. Like it's well directed, well acted, it looks everything
great. Yeah,
the story is interesting, but in the end, it just misses something.
Yeah.
There's something missing in it that just doesn't come together and work. So this is another interesting part of this to me. His budgets for these movies: $15 million for Ex Machina. It made like 30-something million, so it was a success. $40 million for Annihilation, but it only made just under $40 million. It was a failure.
It's disappointing.
Men. I saw there wasn't an official budget I could find anywhere. It was between like $6.5 million to $7.5 million, and made right around that too. So it's like he's not a
box office
guarantee,
draw, right?
I think because like he makes movies for adults. We talk about that all the time. Like Alex Garland is a smart guy.
He is.
He's one of those guys that is probably like if you talk to him, like he's probably hard to communicate with because he seems like the type of guy. Like when he made Ex Machina, I remember him talking about like all the books he's reading about artificial intelligence and all this stuff. And when he's talking about it, he sounded like a real like science guy, just like talking terms way over my head.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's
But
great.
I will say this about his movies though. It does seem like they may not always perform amazingly at the box office, but it feels like they have legs.
Yeah.
Maybe not Men. I never heard anybody, but Ex Machina and Annihilation. To me, it feels like they have left a little bit of an imprint in movie culture, or however you want to say it.
Yeah. So we get to Civil War, and Civil War has now again. There's some disparity. Like on IMDb, it says $50 million budget, but I've seen some other places that say it's more like 75 million.
Really?
In any case, it's an A24 movie, and it said this is the biggest budget for an A24 movie. So my point being, like, with these other movies that didn't necessarily have great box office success, A24 is obviously still way behind. Like, they are behind Alex Garland, and they're saying, like, we trust you. We're going to give you the money. We're going to let you make your movie. And
I would bet it'd be one of those things where there was very little interference from the studio. I don't know that. I would just guess that they let Alex Garland make the movie he wanted to make.
Yeah, which, I mean, seems to be on brand with A24. Yeah. They seem to let people do weird things or unique things. They certainly do.
They have no problem being weird.
And all that I could find on the box office returns was just for Friday so far, but it made 10.8 million through Friday, so it was viewed as like a success.
25 million total this weekend in the United States. Yeah. I don't know what it did worldwide. A24's biggest opening ever.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So,
and I'm really curious
whether it'll have legs or not. I don't know.
Box office legs, because again, I'm sure a lot of that is, as we're just going to keep repeating, the people wanting Roland Emmerich's Civil War that went and saw it, just thinking, I want to go see a big, fun action blockbuster. Now it's going to happen when they start going around telling their friends, like, this isn't a big action blockbuster.
Like your crowd of people behind you, they're going to text their friends, oh, that movie was stupid. Don't see it. Nothing happened.
Yeah. So I thought Alex Garland was great. Now, one thing about this movie that disappointed me a little.
Okay.
So he's got, there's two composers that have scored all his movies so far. Their names are Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow. And I think that they've done great work on his movie scores. I think Ex Machina, one of the things I love about it is I think the score through it is perfect. Annihilation is like this cool, weird balance of like where it does this like the almost Hans Zimmer-esque sci-fi like noise, pulsing noise.
Yeah.
Then it like will interject with this little acoustic guitar like.
It's wild.
But it just works. Men is a weird movie, but it had sort of a nice little haunting. In this movie, I'm not going to say the music was bad, but I was just curious if it was going to be another great score. And I was like, the score just didn't quite land with me. They went back to the acoustic guitar with an interesting kind of off rhythm riff. And I was like, maybe I'll hear it more and it'll grow on me. But I just kind of left going like, the score just didn't hit the way these guys I felt like have been hitting every other time.
Right. So I loved the way he used not original score, but just music in the movie. I don't know that there was one song that I knew.
Yeah.
It was very hip hop.
And a unique thing for Alex Garland. I don't know that he's used a lot of established music.
I don't have some great explanation for why it worked for me, but it just did.
It just pick songs that fit the tone right.
Yeah, there's that scene where there's a little bit of gunfire back and forth, and then I think they go up to like a roof maybe, and they shoot someone, and then it just kind of cuts into a little bit of a montage, and it's playing this very like, I don't know what else to say except hip hop song, and it was like, boy, this is a choice for sure, but I was into it.
Yeah. So yeah, good musical choices.
I was a fan.
And again, I feel almost bad criticizing the score.
I mean,
so many movies I go through and I don't even like think about the score.
Right.
And I think the only reason I was even like really listening for the score is because I felt like
how it was in the other movies.
Yeah, they've made other scores that I will kind of like listen to, like on a not frequent basis, but sometimes when I'm like going for walks at night and I just want like ambient music or something, and I'll play music from their scores.
Sure.
And I just thought, I don't know if this will be one of those. All right, let's get into the cast. We've already talked about Nick Offerman. He was in it significantly less.
What did he have? 2 minutes of screen time?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah. He gets the opening and he gets the very ending. And the very end is very brief for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to know if there was more like on the cutting room floor. If he's, because that's one other note I should have made about this movie is I think like
1 hour and 49 minutes.
Hour and 49 was what I was going to guess. I am shocked by that for multiple reasons. One is you would think usually, again, Roland Emmerich's Civil War would be 3 hours at least because it's a sprawling epic.
Right.
Two is weirdly, that's like a short movie nowadays. Like anything less than 2 hours feels like a short movie. And I wasn't watching this thinking like this feels like a really short movie. I think in part because it throws you right in.
I think that's
Because
what it
there's
is.
not tons of like setup.
You're in the thick of it the whole time.
Yeah.
So it just really hit the ground running in this movie.
So I didn't feel like when we got, done and I thought back and go, that was an hour and 50 minutes. Like it didn't feel like I got shortchanged anything.
No.
Nope. It let us live and dwell in that world.
Yep.
Plenty.
And then when it was time to, that movie ends and it's just boom, this movie's over. Yeah. It's not the long drawn out climax or, okay, now that we've resolved what we wanted to resolve, let's show you kind of what. Nope, you're just done. You're out of that world.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we said, Kirsten Dunst is sort of the main lead.
Yeah.
Now here's a big question I want to ask: is Kirsten Dunst good? Now I want to preface this a little bit because I think that there's been sort of two parts to the Kirsten Dunst career. I think early career, obviously she was in like Bring It On, and then she was in the Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, playing Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her reputation was like she's not very good.
It's not great.
She's,
like
people,
like that's definitely how
you would
people
find like early internet were like clips of people taking clips from Spider-Man movies and being like, look how bad she is in this.
Mm-hmm.
And then she almost had like a Matthew McConaughey-esque renaissance where people came back to like, oh, Kirsten Dunst doing really great work now.
Mm-hmm.
She was celebrated a couple years ago for The Power of the Dog, for an example.
Yep.
My question is, because at least what I've seen of the kind of new respected actress Kirsten Dunst, it kind of strikes me that she's doing the Joaquin Phoenix and Napoleon type thing where like, if I just don't really do much of anything, people assume I'm good.
It'll pass as good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I really don't even mean to say that she's bad, but I was just watching going like, is she doing anything good? Is she doing anything in this role that makes me say like, that had to be Kirsten Dunst because she just made that role her own and nobody else could have done it and that sort of thing. So yeah, I was just kind of left like a little cold by Kirsten Dunst.
Can I tell you one of my notes I have written down?
Okay.
I think she should get an Oscar nomination for this movie.
Okay.
And I'm going to explain why.
Go ahead.
Because I think everything you're saying is fair. I think what she accomplished, and I think a lot of this credit goes to Alex Garland. I think what she accomplished so well in this movie is that she gave off, not just physically, as the kids would say, she gave off the vibe of the weathered, I've seen it all, nothing gets to me anymore, this is only a job, I'm completely able to separate myself from these horrors going on around me. And I just thought that she did that so well. Mm-hmm. And I understand what you're saying, because in doing that, she doesn't have to do a lot. Mm-hmm. So I do I'm not arguing with you. I think what you're saying is fair. But I think, and I don't know this, I think it was a choice from her, from Alex Garland, even her wardrobe, which I normally don't ever comment on wardrobe. But I think they purposefully, especially at the beginning of the movie, I don't remember exactly what she was wearing, but it was just very
bland.
And I think, maybe I'm reading maybe more, I think that was all a choice to create this character. And I agree with you, and I understand, you see the Spider-Man clips and you go, this is not great. But there's something about this performance that I was so locked in, and I thought she did such a good job of just telling you with her screen presence, I've seen it all, I've photographed it all, and I'm like I thought her straightforwardness, and especially when it comes to the younger girl, she looked like she was about 12 in that movie, but I just thought that was all really well done. And I think sometimes, and I don't know what the difference is, where it's like Joaquin Phoenix and Napoleon, where you're just like, this is just bland and boring. But I think sometimes it's an acting choice to be restrained. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated all of that. And I'm not like a Kirsten Dunst fan. Let me just say this. I have the hardest time saying Kirsten. I just want to say Kristen.
Yeah.
And I've been that way since Spider-Man. I'm not a fan. I'm not like, oh, go check her out in this movie. And I mean, I'm not rooting against her, but she's not on my radar. Mm-hmm. But I just thought she was excellent in this movie. I did.
Okay.
And that's just how I read it.
I'm not going to argue that I did not watch it go like, Kirsten Dunst's bad in this.
And I'm not saying like give her the Oscar. Yeah. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just it wouldn't hurt me. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if she got recognized for what she
Yeah.
did in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, again, to clarify, it's definitely not Dakota Johnson in Madam Web or anything like that.
Right.
Like
And
and her name Dakota Johnson. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't, every week when we see a new movie, I don't want to start going, we'll give them an Oscar, because we talked about that with our guy David from Late Night with the Devil, where we both thought he was Oscar worthy.
Yeah.
So I don't want to just say that about every movie that comes out. I'm just saying, if it's a really strong year, leave her out. That's fine. But if it's one of those years where you're like, I wouldn't mind if she snuck her way in.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even last year, which we thought was a good year for movies, was a Best Actress pool that she could have snuck into the nominations
So,
at least.
I thought she did a really good job.
Really top heavy last year.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Okay, so
that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So next Kirsten Dunst movie that comes out, will you be like interested?
Probably not.
Okay.
Not. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not ready to say that. Okay. But I just thought, and maybe just because I hadn't seen her on screen in years and years and years.
Yeah.
And it was just like, all right, let's see what she's got for me here. And like I said, I think just the way she can, she never even really had the big, like, here's my big speech. Yeah. She never really even had that. Just, it was the way she conveyed what she was in that movie is what resonated with me.
Yeah. And Alex Garland, I think, has gotten really great performances in all his movies.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. Like, I don't know if, obviously, it's got to be something in the writing and the directing, and then just talented actors and actresses being in his movies. But I think that is one thing. Like, almost all of his other movies, when I see them, I'd go like, man, the actor did a really good job. I want to see what they do outside of this too.
I mean, I'm not saying like, and I don't care at all, but it's like, now that she's given this performance, if she, her next role does look interesting, by all means. But if she comes out with her version of, Madam Web or something, it's not like I'm going to be like, well, I go see every one of her movies now.
Right.
So
the guy who plays sort of her sidekick, her right hand man, played by Wagner Moura. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly because we never know.
No, we never know.
Names around
here.
One
thing we don't do a good job on here is pronouncing names correctly.
That's right. I was looking it up. I was like, I haven't seen him in a lot, but fascinatingly enough, or interestingly enough, timeline wise, is I was watching the show Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon Prime, and he's got a bit role in that. When he popped up in that, I was kind of like, this guy seems very familiar, even though like I don't know what I'd seen him in. So I looked him up for that, and he was in like the show Narcos, I think, and which I never watched.
Me neither.
But I guess I probably saw promotional material.
I think this may have been the first thing I've seen this guy in.
And then I think there's an element of, I think he gives off a little bit of Pedro Pascal energy, just slightly similar, but like clearly different. Like I wouldn't mistake the two. But I think when I'm going, like, he kind of seems, something about him seems familiar. A mix between Pedro Pascal and, I'm going to mess it up, but it's a guy who acts in Better Call Saul and plays one of the big bad guys.
I know who you're talking about.
And I unfortunately don't know his name. He's kind of like a blending of those two. But he, like, very charismatic actor.
Yep.
And he's playing a guy who's sort of like the outgoing, talkative, like you can tell in the press game, he's the guy who probably does a good job of making connections and like getting people in.
He knows how to play the game.
Yes, and does a great job of that.
He does. I thought he was really good, and I was so glad for a split second when he, when you're learning these characters, I was thinking, boy, I hope this guy's not just the comic relief of this movie, and he wasn't at all.
Yeah,
and that was really glad about that. I mean, he gets a few little. What laughs there are in this movie, which are not many. I mean, he has a few humorous moments, like he puts that hat on when they're in that store and little things like that. But he doesn't turn into just the goofy sidekick.
Yeah, for sure. He is one that I'm like a little curious about whatever he does next. Yeah, and see where he goes.
He's got a cool screen presence, like you said, little Pedro Pascal. But he was charismatic and
yeah, very good. The younger girl, as you pointed out, who seemed like when she first pops up on screen, you're like, you're trying to gauge. You're like, how old is this girl?
Yeah. But I think that I think that's a choice.
Yeah, it gets a little uncomfortable because there's comments about like that guy hitting on her and stuff, and you're like, is he supposed to be really creepy or is he she's supposed. I can't remember how old she says she
I
is
don't
in the
know.
movie.
I think
She says she's like 22 or
or
something.
I think, yeah.
I looked up, the actress is actually like 26, so she's
Yeah.
one of the girls with just a very young
Looking
looking
actress, yeah.
actress. But I thought she actually did the best job in the movie. I thought she was phenomenal
great in this movie.
Yeah,
I thought she was so good.
yeah. Like she had so many, and again, this kind of goes back to your point about Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten Dunst was playing the like world weary, like I've seen it all,
Yes.
so I just don't even respond to things. This girl was the opposite. She was
Yes.
kind of the audience's perspective in, because she's new, and so everything they're driving through and seeing, she's having the reaction that the audience is supposed to feel, but
Yep.
she's getting to have the big like emotional
She's
reaction.
really important to the movie.
So it's letting, like, I get that she has the showier part, and so it's maybe unfair to compare her and Kirsten Dunst, but she does
But
a
you
great
still have to
job.
land that, yeah.
She does a great job of landing it all.
She was fantastic, I thought. Kudos to her. She was great. Her and Kirsten Dunst together were great. And it didn't just turn into the I'm so excited and peppy and you're so grumpy. Like, that could have been so cliched.
Mhm.
And, you know, everything she does, Kirsten Dunst's like, stop being so excited. You know, they give you that, but not just in a lazy, cliched way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do a great job with all the dynamics. They always feel very real.
They
like
do.
They get annoyed with each other at the right times, but they like we're all on the same team and care about each other at the right times and all of that.
And they have the moment where they're in like they're in like a stadium or something, and they're just where are you from? Well, here's where I'm from, Colorado, and da da da. But then it doesn't automatically it doesn't do like the cheesy movie thing where it's like, well, now we're best friends and you're my sister, and like they don't do that. Like they make connections, but Kirsten Dunst never sways away from who she is. You know, they don't just follow the lazy formulas of like, well, we bonded, you know, we had a conversation, so now we're best friends. They didn't do that. But like you said, they are, you know, it's like, well, we're in this together. So I'm going to look out for you, even if you are driving me crazy. And yeah. And I thought there was that great line of dialogue, or just a scene. And I can't remember exactly where it came in, but Kirsten Dunst basically tells her like, hey, if you go and do something stupid and get yourself killed, it's not on me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, like this is good stuff.
Yeah. And the girl asking her like, if I get killed, are you going to photograph it?
Yes.
And it's basically like, yeah. And it's
like, pretty much. Yeah.
Without ever really being said, there's this implicit understanding in the movie that like you photograph the things you're detached from, but when you're actually like emotionally connected to something, like that's not for photographing. And it's demonstrated when the fourth guy in the movie is killed and Kirsten Dunst has the photograph of him. She's looking at it and she deletes it. And it just kind of says like when it's personal, you don't photograph it. So that question of like, if I die, will you photograph it is basically asking like, will you care? And her saying like, probably is.
And I think that just that kind of builds onto what I'm saying, where it's like, man, show them some love in this movie, because all that stuff just works to create these characters without having to do the cliches, like I said. And I just thought all that worked so well.
Yeah. So I don't think I said it. The girl in the movie is played by Kaylee Spaney or something like that.
That's what I thought too. I was really excited to see that she is in the new Alien movie coming out this year.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that's going to be her next movie. So I am going to see that, and I can't wait to see her in it.
Yeah. But just talking about like great character development, because again, hers has the most development. It takes you from the beginning, like the first dreadful thing she encounters, and afterwards, you know, when it's cut back to them in a vehicle and she's kind of like freaking out. She's like, I didn't take a picture. I didn't take a single picture. I like froze up. To by the end, it's great because it's not like by the end she's a pro. She's actually just overcorrected to the wrong degree where she's getting too comfortable and like not having the right level of like
this is dangerous.
Of like, like she's starting to feel herself too much. Like I'm getting the hang of this, and
but yet, you know, because you've been on this journey with these people, it feels believable.
Yes,
where it's like she's gone through a lot on this road trip, so to speak, and now you know we get to the end, and now she is, you know, like, okay, I've gained a little courage or confidence, or I've seen a lot now, and she has that kind of false sense of, you know, and they're constantly having to yank her out of the way.
Yeah.
And that they did that well too, where it wasn't like, well, she's driving me crazy. Like she's
Mhm.
just constantly putting her, like, I guess just because you're in the hands of a gifted writer and filmmaker.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like in another movie, it'd be so easy to root against her. Like this is the annoying tag along who's just constantly doing stupid stuff. But because this is just a smarter movie from a smarter filmmaker, they managed to avoid some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this real quick, but real quick, the fourth guy in the car, played
Also great.
by Stephen McKinley Henderson. He's a great that guy.
He
He's a
is.
guy you see, like he's got a very distinct look.
He does.
And kind of plays very similar characters because of his distinct look. Like
Yeah.
he's an elderly, kind of like wise speaking,
Like-
trustworthy guy. He's got a very trustworthy
Sure.
quality about
Yeah.
him. And again, you kind of get like the stages, I guess. You get the stages of these reporters and these three characters.
Yep.
'Cause you got the young girl who's everything's new. You got Kirsten Dunst who has seen it all and is kind of weathered, and then you got the old guy who's at the end of his life and kind of re-softening,
Mhm.
and trying to tell Kirsten Dunst like,
Hey,
yeah,
she bites the young girl's head off, and he's the one going, "Hey, like,
yeah,
take it easy on her." Yeah,
yeah, and yeah,
he was great. I thought.
he really was,
Yeah.
and so again, getting back into some spoiler categories.
Sure.
The thing with Alex Garland is, I knew the whole movie going in. I'm like, he's not a happy filmmaker,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like he's a depressing filmmaker necessarily, but like he's just, again, rolling in bricks of war. The good guys are going to win somehow in the end. The bad guys lose. With Alex Garland, I was like, people are going to go through some stuff, and like, there's no way all these characters are living.
I knew that movie wasn't going to end with the four of them having a beer together.
Right, and he's the first one
He is.
that gets killed,
Mhm.
and he gets to have a heroic moment. We'll definitely go back to that scene.
Oh yeah, we got to go back to that scene for
But
sure.
even at the end, like the whole end was very tense because it was almost like I knew one of these main three are going to die. Like there's no way we're getting through all this. And all the number of times, like the girl there had to pull back, I really thought that's what he's going to do. He's going to kill this girl.
Who did you think was?
I thought it was going to be the little girl because I thought it's Alex Garland. She's going to go on this journey and then she's going to make the mistake that gets herself killed.
I must have went back and forth in my mind 200 times as to which one of the actresses was going to die.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, she just kept overly extending herself overly bravely. I just thought she's gonna do the thing where she pops out, take a picture, and a bullet's gonna hit her, and she's gonna be dead in an instant. And it's gonna be, well, look, she really wasn't ready for this, and she
Mhm.
got too comfortable. And
that created such a great tension throughout the movie without them having to dwell on it. It's just that idea of at any second, any one of these people could just be like, I'm like you. The whole movie is like anytime someone was talking and the camera was kind of lingering on them, I was like, is a bullet just going to go flying right through their head? And you were in the IMAX. I was in the IMAX. I jumped like 3 times during this movie because those gunshots in the IMAX feel and sound like someone shot off a gun right behind your head.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to some scenes throughout the movie, and we'll just go right to it. The big one, Jesse Plemons' scene.
Oh my gosh.
We said it. He was the scene stealer of the preview, where it gives you that quick exchange of "We're American." Okay.
What is his line?
Well, what kind of American?
What kind of American?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And
What
so
a scene.
The whole scene, like I said, it's like 10 minutes long. It's one of those scenes. I'm not even sure exactly how long it is because it's so tense. It feels way
It might have
longer.
been 4.5 minutes. It might have
Yeah.
been 12 minutes.
Exactly. Where they basically stumble upon these soldiers who are doing war crime things, essentially burying all these bodies. It is such a well-crafted, well-acted, intense scene.
It's unbelievable.
It is. And you, like the whole time you're just like, what's going to happen? How are they like, I just didn't know. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Me neither.
And
Talk about the all-time, like to steal from the rewatchables, an all-time Dion Waiters performance.
yes,
That's one of the awards they give. Someone who just comes in for a few minutes, is red hot, and then they're just gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, one of the all-time great, just let me pop in here, steal a scene, and then get out of the way.
And this is why I think there should almost be 2 categories for supporting actor at the Oscars, because there should be a category for something like that, like for people who just
15 minutes or less.
who just pop in literally for.
I mean, I'd say it's a fair guess. It's probably 10 minutes of screen time. Wouldn't you guess?
Yeah,
I'd say 10 minutes, give or take.
And what's the over under on lines that he says? Like 15 lines, maybe.
And everything's like a 1-sentence line.
Yeah.
Who are you? Where are you from?
And then like
why should I
harassing people who are having a hard time getting answers out because they're freaked out.
Yeah. Oh
And
man, when he's badgering that guy because he's whimpering and crying,
yeah,
you're just like, uh oh.
and you like, yeah, you know why. You don't even know what. I mean, it's the character's Asian, and he's like really freaking out, and you can tell it's because he's asking everybody where they're from to make sure they're American,
Mm-hmm.
and you can tell like this guy doesn't want to say where he's from, even though like you're like, I don't know, he could be from the States. He's been speaking English to these
Yeah.
guys, like, and you want to be like, just you. I was literally in my chair thinking, just lie, guy.
Just say
like,
you're from Wyoming, dude.
yeah, say you're from New York, you
Yep.
know, whatever.
Mhm.
And he says, I'm from Hong Kong, and
Instant.
yeah,
I mean, instant. And then it's like no one's ever been more menacing asking someone why they call Missouri the show me state
yeah,
as Jesse Plemons is in this movie.
yeah,
Where you're just like, I really hope she knows the answer to this question. And he man, I just can't say enough good things about it. He's not doing the I'm so crazy, you know, he's doing the calm crazy, which is way scarier to me.
He plays like detached better than probably anybody. Like,
Just doesn't blink an eye. I mean, never mind the fact that behind him is a giant pit of bodies. And, you know, they showed that so well. He's like, hey, there's someone stuck. When they're dumping the truck of bodies, the one guy's leg, and he just, I don't remember if he says that exact, but basically it's like, hey, there's a body stuck in that truck.
Yeah.
And just no emotion, nothing.
Well, and when we first get to the scene, he's just spreading is it lie or something?
Yeah,
he's just, and just like, so like,
oh yeah. Just
like I'm gardening,
Yeah.
you know, just
bizarre. Unbelievable.
Um,
Really that whole sequence, because it starts with, hey, there's a vehicle behind us.
yeah.
And so right away you're like, you know, that tension sets in immediately. And then to me, maybe just kind of the most odd part of the movie where the girl's like, sure, I'll jump, you know, I'll go from one vehicle to another while we're speeding down the road.
Yeah.
That felt a little off brand for the character to me, but not enough to bother me.
Right. So then we get the resolution of that situation as that fourth guy comes driving in, and it just kind of shocks you out of nowhere, like bit of movie magic where because the camera angles you don't see it coming at all, and you're like, I don't know if they could have actually snuck up like that, but it doesn't matter.
But then you're sitting there going, awesome.
Because the moment it happens, it shifts to perhaps the most cinematic moment of the movie.
100%.
Is the girl in the pit and the zoom out of her.
That was incredible.
On all of those bodies and the kind of freak out and climb out of that pit.
That was incredible.
It was amazing. That was the moment where I go, okay, no matter how this movie ends, no matter how it wraps up,
we've got this 10 minutes.
Alex Garland is a master filmmaker that he just showed right here.
Oh, that's, you know, if they did an award, or if we ever did a podcast of like just all time, just 10-minute sequences or scenes from a movie, this would have to be talked about.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Yeah. And and again, this is what Alex Garland does in a movie called Civil War that's about the whole country, but at a civil war. What he does great are these moments of just a few characters in a very tense situation and just playing it out with such incredible realism.
Yeah.
And like, he doesn't make any decision that seems like it's for cinematic effect, and yet it's incredibly cinematic.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a really great way to put it.
Yeah.
And you're right. Once that scene, like I was locked in the whole time, but then you're like, man, I don't know. I knew at that point we probably had, 20, 25, 30 minutes left, but it's like, boy, they just really hit a high right there with that scene, just from a quality standpoint, an acting standpoint, a directing standpoint, a visual standpoint. Like I said, when they kind of pull back and you're like, oh my gosh, she's in that pit. Like she fell in that pit.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah. So just a couple other scenes to touch on real quick. The scene where they're pinned down by a sniper in a house for a moment. They're two other military guys that are pinned down as well, but they got their own sniper rifle. They're trying to shoot back. And just the dialogue there.
Oh my gosh.
Is so
and you
great.
never ever see the other person shooting at them.
No. And again, why it goes back to like, this is not a movie that's that's concerned at all with the politics of it, because they ask him like, who are you with? And they're like, the only answer they give is basically like, it's just us versus this guy.
Yeah.
Why are we fighting him? Because he's got us pinned down,
shooting at us,
and that's it. That's all that matters in this moment.
Yep. And I love when movies do this thing that this movie I thought did really well. They build upon the world that you're in, and they give you no information. Like, if I don't know if you picked up on this or noticed this, but like those two guys who were, you know, down and they're shooting, they had different like colored markings on their hand. Did you see that? Did you notice that?
Yeah.
You don't know why. They don't, you know, it's not like, oh, this is from this or this. It just kind of adds like to that feeling of they've been living in this situation for a long time. Don't know what it is. I mean, I know what the broad situation is. It's a civil war. What do these colors on their hands mean? Why does that one guy have different markings on his fingernails? I don't know, but it's a great detail. And I like when movies do that. They just throw details in, but they don't explain them. Just makes the world makes the movie you're watching feel more real to me. So just kudos to them for having those little details.
Yeah. And again, he never gets sidetracked too long with any one scene
No,
or
everything
set.
moves.
So even that one, like the resolution is very quick.
What is that guy?
The guy shoots you. I got good
some
news.
End scene.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yep. Cut to we're back on the road.
Yep.
Which is fantastic.
It is.
So that was, another memorable scene. There's
that scene that made me jump. So my dad saw this movie with me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We both jumped when that first shot went off. I knew it was coming. I knew either a gunshot or a bomb, and it still made me jump. Kudos to the IMAX theater. It's awesome.
There was a girl sitting right next to me. I say girl, young lady sitting right next to me. Heard her mom, and I can't remember if it was that scene or one of the scenes where it happened, and you could sense the whole theater jumping. And I just kind of looked over and she went, like this, and I was like, yeah, like I didn't do that, but me too. Like it got me as well.
Yep, exactly.
And I guess I'm not going to go through all the great scenes, but we'll just end with the climactic scenes of them trying to get to the White House in these battle scenes. Again, I'm sitting there wondering, like, when the hundreds and thousands of little decisions directors have to make, about like realism versus how it's going to look cinematically. So one of the things is like there's constant great little like gunfire into the sky, those like glowing shots, and I'm like, I don't know. It's possible that's exactly what it really looks like in real life, but it also looks very cinematic.
Yes.
And there has to be a point where the director's going, I want that because of how it looks in my movie. And just all the little choices like that. Yeah. It just created an atmosphere.
Absolutely.
That was wonderful.
I think most that shined through the most. It was towards the beginning of the movie when your team in the van, it's nighttime and they're kind of winding down and they're just sitting there in the background. There's just all this and they have no reaction to it.
Yeah.
It's like they're watching a fireworks display.
Yeah.
And that was so well done. And they never, you don't get like the cool, like, well, let's pan over and see what's going on. Yeah. Nothing. You just see it almost looks, it kind of looks like fireworks.
Yeah.
Even.
And it like, there's really no gauge of how close that is. Obviously it's close because you can see it.
They're not
acting like they're in danger. So it's like,
I just want to say real quickly too, one thing that they did throughout the whole movie, they never broke from. I thought it was so just smart and, like you said, such a great decision to give you an idea. It kind of feels like this has been lengthy, this war or this conflict, and I thought it was such a great decision that the reporters, up until the very, very end of the movie, the reporters, Kirsten Dunst, they were never fazed by anything going on around them.
Yeah.
I mean, the young woman, the young girl, she is phased. I mean, she's affected. She cries, but they literally just follow along with the soldiers as they're in these battles, and they're so not comfortable, but obviously they've been doing that for a while.
Yeah,
and I just thought that was smart. How they did react, but they didn't have like the big reactions to these things. They just followed along with these soldiers. And the soldiers too were never like, get out of here. Like, it was just accepted in this world. Like we've talked about, I don't care how realistic or unrealistic your movie is, but whatever rules you have for your movie, establish them and stick with them. And in this movie, it's just kind of this rule where the people in combat accept the fact that these reporters are just following right along with them.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was great.
Yeah. No, it was really good. And like, again, kind of goes back to like, it makes me wonder how accurate it is, because Alex Garland strikes me as the type of filmmaker who probably wants his stuff to be as close to accurate as it can be,
Even if it's
and then we'll make it a little more cinematic,
right.
But he not at the cost of like losing authenticity as much as he can.
Yeah.
So it's maybe entirely possible that when you've got these war press, photographers and stuff,
doing. I don't know.
And it kind of makes sense. Like it seemed like they were each kind of paired with a soldier who's like, "You're gonna when I make the run, you follow on my heels, so I can look after you and protect you."
And just that understanding of like, without even them having to say it, you can tell the soldier's thing is like, "Look, I will try to protect you," but same thing with Kirsten Dunst. That girl's like, "It's not on me if you get shot 30 times."
Yeah.
So all that stuff was great. I thought.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff. When they finally get in the White House, and like, okay, we're gonna have to see, as a film viewer, I was going, okay, we're gonna have to see Nick Offerman again, and he's gonna get one more good solid scene of something, like,
because really in your mind it's built into a big Nick Offerman speech.
Yeah,
that's where I thought we were going, where they would finally break into a room and he would just be standing there. He'd give some very deep, well-written speech, and then they'd blow him away. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Instead, what we get is they drag him out from behind his desk.
He's a coward.
The other guy goes, wait. I need a quote. And he says, "Please don't let them kill me."
That'll do.
And he goes, "Yeah, that'll do." And I thought, that is insane. And then they execute him. Like, that's
and
it.
Then movie over.
Yeah.
Literally. From the time he says, "Tell him not to kill me," to the time the credits roll, what are you talking? Maybe 2 minutes?
Yeah, maybe.
If even? I think I'm gauging that right. I feel like it's not much at all. Because after they shoot Nick Offerman, that movie's done.
Yeah.
You get zero resolution on this war. You don't get like the title, like, and 6 days later, peace was declared.
Right.
You don't get that.
No.
Which in a lesser movie you would have.
For sure.
Or you get, like you said, but at the end of the movie, you get the news footage. Now everything's going back to, and it'd show, people rebuilding and people getting along, and it would do that thing. Nope, not this movie. Boom. Written and directed by Alex Garland.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, one big spoiler there with the Nick Offerman thing. We already said we're going to talk spoilers. The other big spoiler is Kirsten Dunst is the one we alluded to this, that it was very clear that, like, well, not very clear, but very possible that one of these characters is going to die in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just all the tension. Like, there's so many close calls. You're just like, there's no way they all make it out of this.
Yeah.
And then it almost played out the way that I said I thought it was going to happen. The
just
girl
in reverse.
overly courageously jumps out in the hallway thinking it's all clear, like, I'm going to be the first to get the picture. And Kirsten Dunst knows, like, she's gone too early. And it telegraphs it just seconds before.
It does.
Like, this is what's going to happen.
I mean, to me, it was probably the most, I keep saying cliched. I think that's the way I want to phrase it. That was the most, like, I've kind of seen this before in different movies, moment of the movie. But you get the extra gimmick of, like, it's capturing it through her camera.
Yes.
So that at least broke up the monotony of just like I've seen scenes like this before.
Yes. So I definitely want to come back to something about that, but just kind of right along with this movie where everything just is propulsive and keeps moving forward, Kirsten Dunst goes down, and, like, there's definitely a moment of, like,
oh my gosh,
shock is happening. It doesn't get talked about.
So that,
and they just have to move on.
That is what I thought. That's what I appreciated so much. Like, I hated to see the character die because I actually liked the character.
Yeah.
But I love how now the young person is doing to the experienced person what she told her she would do to her. Yeah. Well, this is really bad. And it's not like, you never got the impression that what is the younger character's name? Is it Jesse?
Yeah, Jesse.
Okay. You never got the impression that Jesse's like, oh, well, I don't care. But it's almost like, well, she taught me. You got to keep going.
Yeah. And
there's still a good picture to be taken.
Yes. And it kind of goes along with every other situation that she's been in. It's like, I'm horrified, but like you said, keep moving.
All I know how to do now, because I'm so far in the thick of it, is just keep going. And that was amazing, I thought.
And the way that, I should have just said this, Joel is is her right hand man. Like, so he walks over, and you're like, what's his response gonna be? Because they're partners, they're so close, and his response is even less than the girl's. He, like, you can tell he's distraught, but he just picks the girl up, like, come on, we got to go.
Yep, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So going back to the pictures, which I did think was a great way to capture it in
I
a
did
new
too.
way, is the it does that several times throughout where the action's moving
It
going and then
never
it just
bothered me. I always,
snapshot
yep.
picture.
It never
And
felt like a gimmick to
they
me.
do great things with the sound where the sound also like it just goes silent for moments. And there's other parts of the film. We talked about how well it does with the music, the song selection stuff, but there's several parts of the film where it just goes dead silent
Silent.
for like what feels like a long stretch.
Especially there at the beginning.
Yeah.
When someone runs by, I think they were like a bomber. Like they run by and Kirsten Dunst like grabs the girl, the big explosion, and then it felt like 30 seconds to a minute to me of just complete silence.
Yeah. And again, it just kind of goes back to a master filmmaker can do that.
Yep.
You've got to, what you're doing has to be compelling enough that with that sensory just gone,
Yep.
you're still locked in.
Because
like you
otherwise, in a lesser movie, it's just a gimmick.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked all those little creative choices he
Me
was
too.
making. It's funny because almost like Alex Garland is like an artsy filmmaker, but he likes making like sci-fi tense movies
Yeah.
and stuff, and so it's not it doesn't have the feel of a pretentious artsy movie,
Mm-hmm.
but he kind of is.
Yeah. And that's a great combination to me.
Yeah.
I love it when someone can be smart and intelligent and make, like you said, make movies for adults, but still know how to, it's like we talked about at the beginning with these prestige movies, Godfather and stuff. I still want to be entertained.
Yeah.
I do, but not to the point, since we always slam them, I might as well keep the tradition going. I don't want to be entertained what people think of as like the Transformers movies entertainment.
Yeah.
I don't want just dumb, loud, confusing, pointless action and money just thrown up on the screen.
Yeah.
I want to be entertained by these smart, intelligent filmmakers.
So I think I just figured out how I would describe Alex Garland. And I mean, kind of using the most obvious reference points ever, but he's a little bit like a blend between Nolan and Fincher.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That's a great way.
He's kind of like Nolan. He likes the like high concept sci-fi,
Mm-hmm.
Almost taking mainstream ideas but making them elevated and for adults and
Yep.
a thinking man's class. But he's got the sort of like love for the darkness that
Mhm.
Fincher has and the dirtiness and he kind of blends those
great.
two things.
Very well said.
Yeah. So I figured this would be the case. This is one of those movies I walked out going, I really liked it, but I don't know how to feel about it, I don't know where I would rank it. But I had a feeling like a lot of Alex Garland movies, I need to sit with it and it's going to grow on me the more I sit with it, and I'm going to want to rewatch it. And even just sitting here talking about it with you, it's making me appreciate it more and more.
Mhm.
So
To me, it's
I
one
love
of
getting
those,
to do this.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's one of those movies to me, I wanted to just turn right back around and go to the next showing.
Yeah. So I do want to say on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got an 83% critic score,
Mhm.
77% audience score. It doesn't surprise me that's one of those ones with the critics higher than the audience.
No, it doesn't surprise me.
Again, I'm really curious to see what the second weekend box office
See if it has
is
any
going to look like.
legs.
I would love to see it through word of mouth grow, but
too.
I'm so nervous that the opposite's.
I'm a little nervous.
What's
I'm
gonna
glad it
happen?
opened big.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about that. But, the box office, the second weekend is crucial.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I wonder if it's going to have worldwide appeal.
I don't know.
I
It's a movie, like I've said on here before, the box office in general is getting really hard for me to predict. This movie is really hard to predict.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, you could tell me it's going to drop 80% next weekend, or you could tell me it's going to hold, it's only going to drop 20%. I don't know.
Yeah. It'll be
I'll be
really curious to
looking
see.
for sure.
The main thing I'm going to say as we get ready to get close to wrapping this up is, I went in because I'm like Alex Garland, whatever he does, I'm in. But I will say, having gone from Ex Machina, which was like an A+ to me, to Annihilation, which is like an A- to me, to Men, which was like, I still don't even know it, like a C+
yeah.
maybe. I was like, I hope we're not trending downward. I hope we didn't start with like, I've got one great idea and then one great adaptation, and then so this balls back up, and I'm like, okay, good. This validates I'm still all in on Alex Garland. Whatever he comes out with next, I don't need to hear anything other than it's Alex Garland, and I'm in.
Yeah. I just wrote a bunch of bullet point notes. And the very first thing I wrote is, to me, and all due respect to the actors I've said, I thought they were great. This was the Alex Garland show to me.
Yes.
His choices, his visuals, and I've already talked about it, but like the way he presents and the choices he made to present Kirsten Dunst the way she is in the movie, A+++ job by him.
Yeah. No, he was. Yeah, he just
the,
really good.
The confidence that you know he had to have had in this material to have that confidence to not give us any exposition.
Yeah.
Any backstory as to why there's a civil war. I can't emphasize enough how little information you get in this movie.
Yeah, and I don't know if I conveyed this well or not. That I think I was all around it, but Alex Garland is a guy who does not care what audiences are going to want. He cares about what he's interested in.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he goes, I think it'd be really interesting to follow this story inside of a greater world of a civil war going on. And I know he had to know a lot of audiences are going to want to know more about the story I'm not telling,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't care because I want to tell this story. I'm endlessly fascinated by, like, I would want to sit down with Alex Garland and just be like, okay, Alex, I'm just curious. At what point in the story did you decide, okay, these are going to be press photographers? That's going to be the leads of my movies going through here. Like, did you start with that idea?
Right.
Or were you like, I need some people who are moving through this and can be involved in it, but not what is that? And then you discovered, it could be press people. Like, at what point did you figure that out? Because focusing in on that is certainly a choice. And I think he did it perfectly and did it well. But the ability to say, like, I'm going to make a movie called Civil War that is very
really
little,
not going to show the Civil
very
War.
little about the fact that there's a civil war and more about, like, this small story through it is incredible.
It is. And I just want to say, like, we talked about it, I think, after Terminator 2. And you couldn't have said it better, where you talked about smaller scale, bigger characters.
Yeah.
And this is yet another example of proving your point correct. We don't need to see what's going, we don't need that giant United States view of what's going on. This is a very, very contained story. There's a lot going on, and there's a bigger picture, but we are focused on the smaller story. And 99% of the time, that is what works.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Whew. Okay. So I think people could figure out by this point. We're recommending it.
We are recommending
Go check it out.
We are excited about it.
Be part of that great second weekend box office. Go see this in IMAX. I would definitely recommend that because visually it is really well shot. The cinematography is great. The sound is great.
Was unbelievable.
Yeah. So if you can do IMAX, do it. If not, just do whatever theater you can.
Yeah.
Let's champion this movie.
I'm championing it. Like I said, it moved to the top of my list.
Yeah. It's definitely on my list. I'm gonna have to rethink my list.
Yeah.
But good news is I don't have to give my updated top 5
and
for another couple months.
I should have saved that maybe because I know you want to start doing that.
No,
but
that's
sometimes I cannot contain my excitement.
Yeah. So that was sort of the last big movie for a little while that I'm, like, definitely looking forward to. I think the next, like, big one I'm looking forward to is Furiosa, but there are some smaller movies coming up that I'm looking forward to. Next weekend, actually, I've already booked my tickets for a Friday night double feature, back-to-back IMAX, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare and Abigail.
Oh, yeah.
So it's actually pretty good. Like, we're reaching that stretch. We're almost getting to, like, summer movies where there's a lot of good
every
movies.
weekend. I gotta say, I'm really pumped for Abigail.
Yeah,
I will be seeing Abigail next weekend. So
it'll be a lot of fun. I went and saw the movie Wicked Little Letters, which I really enjoyed. I'm going to be championing that one.
Yeah.
But Jessie Buckley in that movie, she has a daughter. I was looking at the daughter. She's not, like, very prominent in the movie, but she pops up. I was like, this girl looks very familiar. And then it hit me. That's the girl from the Abigail previews. And I looked it up afterwards, like, sure enough, it is. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, and I was like, can't wait to see her play Abigail. And she was good in that movie and her limited role. So
good to hear.
But yeah,
I'm excited for Abigail. I really want the well done horror comedy to succeed. And I know you do too.
Yeah.
Because you like the horror comedy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then coming up soon, I don't know if we'll do it next week or the week after. We got to do another 99 movies. You've already told me what you want your 99 movie to be.
Do you want me to
let's go ahead and reveal that, because
Okay.
whether it's next week or not, we want to give the people some time to watch this. So.
Well, and I'll tell you my reasoning. It's like we've come out of the gate pretty heavy. I mean, Blair Witch, Fight Club, Bringing Out the Dead, and Magnolia. It's been very weighty. I thought we needed to have a little fun, and we needed to have some ridiculous fun. So we're going Varsity Blues.
Yep.
Yeah. We're going to go back and look at your guy, James Vanderbeek, and see if his performance holds up.
Old Vanderbeek. He is something. And Paul Walker.
Paul Walker.
Yep.
Scott Conn,
Yep.
son of James Conn, who's in The Godfather.
That's very true.
Yeah. We're not going prestige from my end of things. I don't know what you've got planned, but
so I was thinking long and hard about what I wanted to pair with Varsity Blues, and I very strongly considered two movies just so that we could blur the titles. I thought about maybe a Varsity Blues Streak,
oh nice,
the Martin Lawrence comedy. I was trying to figure out how you could blend Varsity Blues and Deep Blue Sea, Varsity Deep Blue Streak,
right.
But ultimately, I think what I'm actually going to go with is the 1999 The Mummy. And the reason I decided maybe I'd just go to The Mummy is it was
playing at the theater.
It was already on my list, but it's supposed to pop back into the AMC
It
theaters
is.
at the end of this month, and I thought might be perfect timing.
Yeah.
I'll go maybe catch it in the theater either right after we've talked about it. Maybe we'll talk about it, and then people have a chance to see it, or we'll see it. I'll see it and then talk about it.
So if you felt like Bringing Out the Dead and Magnolia was just a little too prestige for you, don't worry.
Yeah.
Now we got The Mummy and Varsity Blues.
That's right. We've got
no one's going to accuse us of being overly prestige.
Family-friendly popcorn classic, and then we've got teen comedy drama.
In the era of zero political correctness.
Absolutely zero.
Zero, as we will find out when we watch Varsity Blues.
Yes. So make sure you guys are watching those in advance so you can enjoy the conversation with us. I'll say this, if you have any thoughts about those movies you want us to share, hit us up with those, and maybe we'll share some other people's thoughts on our podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But as for now, we're done for today. So we want to just thank everybody who listened or watched.
Yeah. Go check out Civil War. I'm going to tell you, just like you said at the beginning, you might not like it, but I feel like it's a movie worth checking out.
Yes. And I do think it would be very helpful to have the foreknowledge of what you're getting into, what kind of movie you're getting.
Yes. Don't go in expecting a generic battle and I mean, this is a thinking man's movie. It's highbrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So go see it. Let us know what you think, and then come back and join us next week.
Absolutely.